Patrice is a member of the ISO C++ Standards Committee since 2014 and the Programming Language Vulnerabilities Working Group since 2015. Today, he is with us to talk about his book, Practical C++ Memory Management Strategies, some modern language features, and advanced techniques. A very warm welcome to you, Patrice. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
I'm glad to be there. And just to be sure that everyone understands well what I'm doing, I teach with the game programmers, but I don't write games myself. Because people come to me at talks or conferences saying, and your next game, I don't write games. But those I work with, they do it very well.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Patrice. And really great to have you with us here today. And let us start this discussion by talking about your book, which is C++ Memory Management. And the first thing I'd like to ask you is, in your book, you sort of choose to address memory management challenges across a very wide range of domains, such as real-time systems, embedded devices, games, desktop applications, so on. So what inspired you to tackle such a broad scope for memory management in your book?
It's the fault of my editor. The thing is, I've been giving classes at CPPCon, and if you haven't followed the CPP, if you haven't gone to a CPPCon class in your life, you should. It's really cool because lots of very proficient experts there. So I gave a class on low latency systems. I gave classes on how to make your software smaller. I do that quite a lot, which is connected to memory management in a sense. And I gave a memory management class in C++ a few times. It went very well. It was a cool class to give. And 2 years ago or so, back contacted me saying, you know that class you've been giving? Have you thought about making a book out of that? It sounds like it could make a really cool book. And I think never written a book myself. I've written my PhD thesis and lots of articles and stuff. Of course notes, plenty, like thousands and thousands of pages. Well, that could be an interesting thing. So I tried to transform the class experience into a fun reading experience. And that was enlightening because it's really different. So that's what led to the book.
Okay. And can you think of some gaps in existing resources, based on your experience, based on your teaching experience, based on what your students came and say to you that you were trying to fill with this book that you thought existing resources or methodologies weren't able to address?
Absolutely. First things first, there was a trend, maybe more, it was stronger 20 years ago, where people went to memory managed languages, so languages with garbage collectors, where you spend less time thinking about how you manage memory, which is cool, but spend a lot more time, sadly, as to how you manage the other resources, because in these languages, well, memory is special. But when you open up files or network connections, you have to do lots of more manual effort at the very least. That's always bugged me. I prefer something that's more uniform in its approach. C++ is very nice for that. My usual customers, they need control over the way that their software behaves. So I work with people with very strict time constraints, for which a garbage collection is a problem. Normally, when you start a garbage collection without knowing, because you try to allocate memory and there's not enough for something, you know when it starts, but you don't necessarily know when it ends. And that is a problem when you have strict constraints, because that takes time away from your application. So if you're under a need to react quickly or to deliver a video frame or an audio frame now, well, that gets in the way. So yes, the people that I get in my classes, undergrad or graduate students, they often don't know how to do that because they've never been exposed to this. C++ is a very nice model in which all the resources are endowed through the same mindset, essentially. Memory is not different from other stuff. So you can complain that you worry about memory, but the thing is, you never close a file yourself in C++. It's all done through the same implicit set of mechanisms when you get how to write your code properly. And when you write C++ code, it's very clean. You try to write C++ as C, which is another fine language, but different. When you write code in a language, you have to think in that language. So if you write C++ as C++, it's an awesome language. So yes, so people when they need that kind of control, well, C++ is a very good tool, and that fills these gaps. You want to know when things are going to happen, how long it's going to take. It's a tool for you.
Okay, wonderful. And you also said that it's a fun way to learn, isn't it? So, within the book, how did you? I mean, now I've spoken to you, I'm definitely very confident about. But for our viewers, how did you approach balancing foundational topics within the book alongside advanced domain-specific techniques? What kind of structure did you choose to follow for the reader's benefit?
Uh, it's a cool question, really, because that's one of the problems you face. Okay, so when you have a classroom in front of you, which I've been doing for 28 years now, so teaching is something that now comes natural to me. It doesn't start that way, but it's easy. I see my pupil in the class. I see their eyes. I know what's going on, and I can make the joke at the right time. When they're reading the book, you're not there, so they have to be able to function without you, which was a challenge here. But I hope people read the book will find that it's working. We'll see. The cat. I don't know if I did it well though, but my thoughts were: let's start with a few chapters where you make sure that we're all on the same page. So I tried to make sure that we have a common vocabulary. We understand what we mean by things such as objects and pointers, because these things, everyone thinks they understand it, but it's not as easy as people think to really understand what an object is. There's a meaning to that in C++. We try to define that properly. Working in the language myself helps putting these things into words. I hope I did it well. And I took a big risk. I'm still wondering if that was the right thing to do, but readers will tell me. My second chapter is about things you shouldn't do. So don't do this, don't do that, but not spelled that way. My point is we're going to be sometimes very high level, far from the machine, sometimes very close to the machine, low level, and sometimes we're going to play dirty tricks because that's where how we're going to meet our objectives. So we have to do these things right because there's not much of a protection when you're very low level. You're too close. So you're getting things out of the way to make sure that you control every little detail, and you can really hurt yourself if you're not careful. So I wanted to make sure that when we get to that point where you do stuff that's kind of dangerous, we have to do it right so that it's not dangerous and we understand what we're doing. So putting a chapter well, very early on of dangerous stuff, I'm hoping it's gonna work, but readers will tell me, of course. I tried to make it fun though. I tried to explain why you don't do these things because the right way of doing them comes back again and again and again in a more cohesive framework after that. So I have a chapter actually with no example code, only one though, because all of the others do. But in this chapter, it's all stuff you shouldn't do. So the code in the book, it would kind of work, but if you do it, you're gonna put yourself in trouble. So starting from this common framework, I was hoping that we could then move on to advanced topics. And I'm trying to be gradual there. So starting with stuff that's more common knowledge and getting towards more advanced and exotic stuff after that.
Okay, that's a very creative approach, and it's really going to be interesting to hear what readers think. We'll not soon enough. But what would you say will be the most important takeaway for someone who picks up the book and like reads it from beginning to end? The most important thing.
That one is difficult because we have a variety of potential readers here. So I'm hoping that some people will get, maybe from the first third of the book, a good grasp of just some practices. Okay. For example, there's a chapter around 5 or 6, I don't remember which one, where we discuss how to use standard smart pointers, and I think everyone should know how to do that in today's C++ because it's really a good way of working. You understand the pros and cons, the costs where there are costs. Sometimes there's none, and you just write code that works really. Then when I go one step further, we actually write academic versions of these, but reasonable versions of these types to understand what's going on under the covers. So if you want to write good code that manages resources yourself or using standard tools, the first half of the book is going to get you there, I think. And if you're a beginner to intermediate programmer, just wants to write smart code is going to be good. If you want to learn how things work and see the nooks and crannies and everything, the further you go, the better it will get. You get the same effect towards the end. I have 3 chapters where we use containers, where you store stuff. The first one really is a naive approach with 2 different containers. You write the kind of code that would probably come to mind for you when if you had to write one. But then we go deeper because if we want to compete at the speed of the standard containers that are really well done, then you have to know more stuff. And your memory management knowledge from earlier on the book comes together and helps you do a better job, avoid unneeded work. But of course, it's more involved. So there's a gradual thing. I think that beginners, intermediate, experienced programmers will get different benefits and use some of the chapters more than others. Someone who's more experienced will probably like the last part of the book more than the first one. It was that, at least that's how I tried to build it.